There we are.
Hello, this is John Wynn with my co-host Billete, and this is the Doomer Bloomer podcast. Hello, Bill.
Hey, guys. Hey, John.
What up?
The sky.
Yes,
Been a while since we've been in front of a microphone.
it's been a while. When you live in far north Canada, there's bound to be technical difficulties. But you've also visited our brothers in the south, in the Big Apple. So
Yeah, I went down to the United States for some training for work and was there for 2 weeks, but it felt like 8 months and
yep.
got sick somewhere in between. So kind of took a bit of hiatus so I could regain some health. And here we are, but in October.
Here we are. Our last podcast was in the beginning of September, I think, correct?
Yeah, late August or September.
Yeah. Well, we're back now for our few audience members here. So, without further ado, what are the subjects we'll be talking about today, or topics? We're not professionals.
Yeah, so not a comprehensive list, but may talk about the Canadian federal election that's happening right now with Justin Trudeau and Andrew Scheer and the rest of the parties. 2020 and beyond, some predictions for maybe the presidential election, Trump impeachment, maybe heading into a recession or not, and how you can make profit or not from that. You wanted to touch on the new Joker movie that just came out and the reactions from the social justice warriors and whether or not it could be a bad influence on society or not. And potentially is since the 1980s has male strength been decreasing, so specifically grip strength and physical masculine attributes in general.
Yes, especially like strength. Like grip strength is supposedly one of the best ways to measure overall strength. And I actually just reviewed it before we started. I went down from 117 pounds to 98.
And that's from 1980 till now?
85, yeah. And actually, this study, I think it came out in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in basically a generation is 30 years, right?
20 to 25, I think.
Yeah.
Is 30 is like the biggest spread.
Yeah.
So, so a generation ago, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And do you think it's because of the way that we eat now? You think it's because people don't exercise enough, or we don't do as much physical labor? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what's interesting is that female grip strength has actually increased, and supposedly it's up to 98. Also, it's like equal with the men. And I was like, really?
So equality is a real thing.
I guess. Find it. I should have read more into it and got prepared with this, but like the exact numbers are not necessarily that important. So to find out what the reason is, I think we can't necessarily go with diet or work or what. Well, I guess they do play factors, but why would, like, I don't think women are on average doing much more physical work than men. So why would men's strength decrease and women's increase?
Well, I have a unique perspective on that because I used to do CrossFit. Well, I do CrossFit, and you see a lot more female competitors in CrossFit now.
Okay.
And in terms of like what amount of weights they're lifting. Um,
Yeah.
Once they get to a higher echelon or level in their
Yeah.
CrossFit, they can lift as much as an average man, unless you're in the higher levels. Like they're lifting weight that's equal to or more than their body weight sometimes, which
Okay.
which is hard to match with a man pound for pound, right? If you're trying to lift the same amount
Mm.
of your body weight,
Yeah.
but that's a very specific,
Well, they
right?
yeah, for a specific exercise. Well, they say if you're able to lift your body weight, you're considered a strong person. Like if you're able, like the bench press, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're strong. I mean, you're not super strong. I mean, it's not like world shattering record or whatever, but you can consider yourself a fairly strong man or woman for that matter if you're able to bench your body weight. Um, so yeah, I mean, if a woman can do something similar to that would equate to being strong in that sense. I've never said myself that women can't be strong. Just on average, like men have always been stronger than women for various reasons. But what's weird is like even if women were more at home back in those days, like um, I mean, I think they work. I think it was more physically grueling to do chores all day and scrub and all that than sit in an office, right? And I go to the gym myself, and it's not like I see the gym I go to for in any case, and the other gyms I've been to my life, but I either see about 50% women to men or more men. And most of the women are doing more cardiovascular activities than there's not that many women that are doing weights, especially not heavy weights, right? So I think the fact that I guess one of my theories would be just the fact that men feel so powerless and disconnected from their core selves
Mm. The feminine,
that and like go ahead, sorry.
the feminine social hierarchy has been definitely reversed in the last 40 years. It could be a
Hmm.
contributing factor, right? Women are in the
Well,
workplace now. They hold to jobs traditionally that were once held only by men. I'm not saying that they can't
yeah.
have those jobs, but I'm just saying that because of the inclusion, which is fine, there may be a correlation, either directly or indirectly.
Hmm.
Correlation may not necessarily be causation, though. I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, even if you take the small percentage, I really think, and the more I'm thinking about it as we speak right now, I think the more it makes sense. And I'll give a personal experience of mine. I remember when I was younger, I wasn't even in my 20s yet. I was still a teen. Um, I was just kind of like skimming through working out. I wasn't really working. I wasn't planning on working out seriously, but sometimes I'd go to the gym and lift a few weights, and it was kind of like dipping my toe into working out at the time. And I didn't have much trouble fighting, and I'd say I'd do okay to whoever was my competition at the time. Um, streetwise, I'm not talking about like a professional competition, but like, I wasn't like a fighter, like an everyday fighter or anything like that. But if scuffle, if like a bar scuffle or something like that would happen, I mean, I wouldn't shy away from it either. So uh, I remember I had trouble lifting like 135 pounds at that time, and like I was able maybe to do like a rep or two or something like that, which is not much, right?
you're talking on the bench.
Yeah, bench press.
Okay.
Um, like it was far from an impressive amount. You know, as someone that trains regularly 2-3 times a week can definitely improve upon that fairly quickly. But I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't in a healthy. Like I was. I didn't have a healthy lifestyle. Let's just say. Let's just say that. But I remember I got into a fight, and the guy really deserved it, and I whooped his ass. Like seriously. And I went back to the gym. I think the day after that happened, and that same 135 pounds that I had trouble lifting, I was able to do a full on set, not a problem. I was I was legitimately endurance wise and just like strength wise a lot stronger just by having that fight and coming out on top of that. And I think, and it's proven, and it's actually proven, be it in rats or monkeys or whatnot, if you become top of the hierarchy, you produce more testosterone, more less stress hormones, and all that, and you actually become stronger, physically stronger. I think you've read the 12 Steps of Jordan Peterson. I haven't read it yet, but I think
Oh,
he talks about that subject, right?
in the lobsters. I'm touched with the lobsters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the lobsters, right? And I think you referred to serotonin at that point. I'm not so sure. Like I haven't read the book, but I've seen a lot of his videos, and I appreciate a lot of what Jordan Peterson does. A lot of the critics against him are unfair or unfounded, in my opinion. I don't think he's right about everything and all that, but I rarely there's rarely anyone I think they're right or uh, about everything. So someone that can nail
He's
something
on.
properly
He's,
so many times. Hmm?
he's in rehab right now.
Yeah, I know for Xanax,
Just like
but
just putting that out there.
yeah. Yes, I know.
And
Or Ativan or something like that, but it's like a barbiturate. But anyway, so to get back to there, my theory is that men are so disconnected with their more primal selves,
mm-hmm.
and they're being dominated, like that feeling of being completely that being dominated by the world all the time, by the man that's on top, like, you know, all the rich people. So right now, like the man a lot of times is like rich people, or like men are feeling more and more powerless and without options, and they're kind of confused because like there's so many other agendas, you know, that would tend to be more far left, saying that men, as you are spontaneously and naturally, is not okay, but it's okay to be all these new genders. It's okay to be almost like a bitch,
Oh,
but
they're trying to raise men that the way that women are to be raised.
castrated men.
Yeah.
I mean, like society is definitely feminizing men, um, and even when I was living growing up, it's not. It's I didn't feel like the surrounding people around me were trying to feminize me necessarily, but it like when you feel that you don't have that much power in your life and all that, it will make you physically weaker. And that example of then getting into a fight and kicking that guy's ass properly when he really deserved it, and just blasting through my records, like without extra training. Like I mean, it was the next day thing. Like really showed to me how like the correlation is the cause and effect of how you feel inside, um, as a man or as a person in general. How powerful you feel inside can definitely affect your physical performances.
So you're saying
So,
psychological is related to physiological.
oh yeah, I think that men are taught or almost encouraged, if not encouraged, they're I'm not saying they're necessarily encouraged to be weak, like directly, but it feels like being a natural, having natural male impulses is being more and more frowned upon, and you can
Well,
see that in school and all that. They're
well,
cutting out like physical activities and gym and stuff like that to do stuff like yoga um, and there's nothing wrong with yoga, or but other stuff like more touchy feely stuff than you
yeah,
know.
because generally speaking, boys in general learn better by doing and being active. And especially in schools now, that's not how kids are taught anymore, right?
No, no.
They've even taken away like sports days and replaced them with, you know, uh, like not 3 days, but like there's no sports competitions anymore, right? There used to be when I was going to school, but now everything is leaning toward participation medals rather than actually
Mm-hmm.
structured in a way that like winners, winners and losers, right? And
Exactly. I mean, competition is being more and more frowned upon.
mhm,
Men are being told to be more and more subservient and weak.
mhm.
They're basically being told to be weak, even though it's not directly. But they're being told not to be themselves
by
and not to be
yeah, because by the
in line with their more archaic nature. And because like the narrative these days is that being a man, not being a natural man, is you're a savage beast that can't control yourself, that's just going to rape and pillage like everything around you.
right.
And that's kind of like the consensus, um, depending where you are. That's being taught to boys and young men unconsciously or directly, even,
Mhm.
right?
So
So when you have all that immense social pressure. It's hard to be in touch with your core body. Like you're literally, your brain is literally cutting parts of your nervous system off to be a good little boy,
I think
to be a good nice guy.
there's a certain amount of cognitive dissonance that goes on, right?
Yes, yes.
You're told one thing but expected to act another, and
Yeah, that could tie in well with what we wanted to talk about, like double standards, right?
well, yeah, there definitely are double standards. Um, like men are told that like if you have your shit together, like you have a place like of your own, you have a car, you have a
Mm-hmm.
good job, you have all these things. It's just like if you build it, they will come, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
But women have built up in their mind that especially Western culture, that they're princesses and that their prince will come and save them at a castle window, right? And then they're
Mm-hmm.
surprised when they show up. Oh, I'm a princess, and all that's there for them are the frogs, right? The
Yeah. Yeah.
the guys that may may have money and all these things, but they don't have the full package, and they're just like, oh no, they're missing
Yeah.
this one quality that I really wanted, and I can't have it. So like they'll take to Instagram or social media and have all these orbiters. And in
Yeah.
generations past, you grew up in more tightly knit communities, right? Like even right after World War II, right? So
Yeah.
people are getting married later, and lots of people aren't getting married at all. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they're wondering why divorce rates are going up. Children don't have fathers that are there. It's because over time, the most masculine men have decided, they're only going to take the best because that's what's that's what's afforded to them. But if you're, I don't know, if you're
Yeah.
quote unquote average, I mean, I don't really like using the term. There's so much pressure to be a certain way, and then if you don't fit the stereotype, you're basically ignored, right, in one way or another, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, like for instance, like the 6 foot rule,
yeah,
right?
6 foot, six
Um,
foot tall, six inches in the pants, 6 figure income, six pack abs. Uh, there's two more. Rich,
I didn't. I never heard that. I didn't remember that. I wasn't aware of all the other sixes, but you're absolutely right.
and
Right.
then
Um,
if God forbid the woman has kids and like two other fathers, doesn't have a job, a lot of debt, and is like a hairdresser.
yeah. Yeah.
God forbid you for not wanting to man up and hang out with a woman with kids. Like,
Yes.
no, like, figure your shit out.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yes.
understand the
Yes.
extenuating
That's so
circumstances.
true.
Like, if there's extenuating circumstance if someone's widowed or something like that, that's different. But like,
Yeah.
on average, like, what I'm seeing is women getting pregnant on purpose and then using it as an excuse to exploit their their
To trap the
their
man.
baby daddy, or to trap the man. I'm just like,
Oh yeah.
and then you have to be very, unfortunately, red pilled aware of these things. Um,
Yes.
and
Definitely.
if
I've
you're
seen.
young,
I've literally. I've seen a girl. I've seen a girl literally punch holes in condoms. She was dating this guy and she wanted to have a kid. The guy did not want to have a kid, and I saw her straight up in front of me punch holes in the condom to have a kid. I've seen girls lie about being pregnant to keep the guy in the picture, um, and or say they're on the pill, but they stop taking the pill to get pregnant, and so on and so on. And like that's in my own personal life. Never mind all the stories I hear elsewhere, be it online or through other people and stuff, which is completely
there's a lot of
insane.
manipulation that goes
Yeah.
on behind the scenes in our society that people don't even want to talk about, really. You know, because
Well, especially not
go ahead.
especially not in this cultural climate, where anything that comes out of these new narratives that are changing every week or every month can get you legitimately penalized in society, be it lose your job, being ostracized,
just
and
because
so on.
somebody said something, right? It doesn't even have physical or video or any evidence anymore, right? It's just a he said, she said sort of scenario.
It's all about feelings.
Yeah, that's great. It's all about feelings. And I personally don't communicate with feelings. So,
and we're the same way. I do have a feeling side to me, and I do convey it. But however, the way I try to structure the information in my mind when I'm trying to understand something, I might. It's like I might first approach it with feeling, but I have to filter it through with
logic
as much as possible, with rationality and logic, right?
And that's what traditionally men are known for doing, being rational males, right? Logic and using those things to our advantage, and it's I'm not saying that women aren't capable of being rational using logic, but it's not their natural state of being, in my opinion.
Well, and there's biological reasons for that. I mean, a woman has to be in tune, not only, like, first of all, as we developed into human beings, we were a fairly weak animal until we had the brain capacity to um,
Invent a sharp,
to navigate the world.
invent a sharp.
Yeah, and exactly, and within human culture, women were usually the first victims. Um, if there was a war between tribes, or women
Psychological
wandering off
warfare.
on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, like women had to be a lot more in tune with their surroundings and trust their feelings than men. They had to be more in tune to danger. Like women faced a lot more danger, but not only that, they had to be in tune with what their child needed. Like a child is just 10 pounds, 10, 15 pounds of emotion and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. It has no logic or rationality or whatever.
Women,
Its rationality is based on their needs, and they'll express their needs through emotional outbursts.
women were
So women had,
nurturers.
yeah, nurturers. They had to be in tune. There has to be an evolutionary reason for why they're like that, and makes sense that to actually take care, be with a baby 24/7 for years on end, at least like 3-4 years. Like 90% of the, because like of course we lived in tribes and other people could
Oh,
take over and all that. But
yeah, we live differently, is what you're saying. You lived more in a village. The whole idea of it takes a village to raise a child sort of deal, right?
yeah, but even up till the 60s, where women didn't really have couldn't really control, really didn't have birth control, where they got married, and once they got married, they were popping out babies nonstop, right?
Well,
Well, it was only obvious that the woman would stay at home. Like, what else could they do? There had to be someone going out, just like cavemen did. There had to be someone going out. Like, it wouldn't make no sense that men would stay and take care of the babies in the caveman days when when women were. I mean, just being pregnant on its own is definitely going to limit your physical capacities. And then having to nurture a baby, like of course women couldn't go out hunting. It had to be the men, right? Let's just pretend that women were all equal strength wise and all that, which we know it's not the case. But even if it was the case, it still made more sense for the men to go out and do that type of work than the women.
do you know?
And the women stay and take care of the children, right? And up till the 60s, that's what it was, right?
Yeah, and it's 1960s is technically going on 70 years ago, or 60. Yeah, right. 1929. Yeah, that's 60 years ago. So
Yeah.
we're looking at almost 2/3 of a century now,
Mm-hmm.
and things
Exactly.
think. I mean, I'm not saying that that's progress, right? I'm not saying that living the 1960s was more idyllic or better. I wasn't even alive yet. Um, but,
Yeah, me neither. Exactly.
but also there's a lot of things in our society and our environment that exist now that didn't. The internet is one of them, or like a viable internet. Computers,
Yeah.
um, access to information now is freely available. Um, there is there's no place on earth, like if you don't have a broadband connection, you can't, even if you're using a sat phone, you can't get a hold of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So we entered after post World War II into a completely different dynamic. So because the men were away at war, women had to fill their shoes, right? Because so many,
Yeah.
right? And some came back, some didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
also uh, because after they like abolished the gold standard, women started not at like women in the late 60s, early 70s started entering the workplace.
Yeah, Nixon is the one that abolished that gold standard. You're talking about literally
Mm-hmm.
when they started inflating the money
That's
there.
right.
Is that what you're talking
That's
about?
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
after 1974, both parents now have to work, right?
Yeah.
It's just the reality of the economic situation that we live in at least in.
I mean, it was still manageable at that time that a woman could stay at home. When I grew up, I was born in '81. Um, like I would say maybe 30 to 40% of my friends' moms and all that would work, and the rest would be stay at home moms where I grew up, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was getting more and more like you could tell that when both parents worked, it seemed a lot easier budget wise for the kids that had like two parents working than the even like in the same neighborhood with the houses being relatively the same price. You could see like um, it seemed a lot easier for certain kids, and I noticed it was most of the time when the two parents worked to have like brand new, like the latest style, whatever clothing that cost the most and all that,
Mm-hmm.
compared to a one income family. Right? It was still possible to do it, but in this day and age, it's getting harder and harder, man,
Well,
especially with these shit degrees that are being churned out every year, with the cost of schooling being more and more, and the quality of the actual education and the value of your actual diploma being worth less and less. It's like an inflation of the education system.
agreed. And we don't even live in the United States, and it's still bad in Canada.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot less. It's a lot less present as in the U.S., but Canada seems to catch up with the good, but also with the bad and the ugly of what happens in the U.S. So
Wow.
let's not pretend that there's no danger. We also know people mutually and on each our own ends where people get kind of hosed, if you will, by the educational system.
Well, and maybe this is a nice segue into our like Canadian politics federal election. But like out
Mm-hmm.
of there's the two runners obviously are the Liberal Party of Canada and the Conservative Party of Canada. They're
Yeah,
basically neck and neck right now. But the Green Party is actually
yeah,
building some momentum under uh, Elizabeth May. So they may be in the running to be the kingmaker because they're going to hold. If in a minority parliament, the way it works in Canada, if you don't have full majorities, they don't have the majority of the seats. You have to form basically a coalition. So they're willing to form a
yeah.
coalition with either liberals or conservatives if they are going to align with their climate change uh, agenda,
Yeah, yeah.
which is really
I don't think the yeah, I don't think the conservatives would be down with that.
well, no.
I don't know how bad they are compared because, like, I know in the U.S. There's like there's straight up like climate change deniers,
Well, yeah,
and
Republicans and Donald Trump basically say, yeah, climate change, global warming is a myth. Keep burning coal, fossil fuels until we basically run out of them. But you can't deny that, living on the coast or in certain hotter regions, like regional areas,
mm-hmm.
and like when I was out in the States, there was a lot of, I was watching the Weather Network almost every day. Like Hurricane Dorian
Yeah,
just passed by me and then basically destroyed Nova Scotia. And then there's a couple
yeah,
more hurricanes coming by. There's a tropical depression that basically drenched southern Texas, Galveston for better part of 4 days. These are,
Mm-hmm.
we only live in like a finite space of time on a global geological time scale. So it's really hard for us as human beings to grasp the
Yeah.
cycles of the weather, obviously.
Yeah, and but what made me actually start doubting, because I used to be full-fledged believer in climate change,
Mhm.
if you will, and I mean the science is pretty clear that we are creating an impact on the Earth, but I'm hearing more things about what's being said in that environment that's being debunked. Like for instance, like it's almost like every year we're being told that in the next 20 years we're going to be running out of oil, and that's been said like since I think the 30s or 40s.
And then,
And some say it's because some say it's because they want to jack up the prices that actually comes from the oil conglomerates. But some people will also say that it's these environmental parties trying to push their own agendas. I think it's probably a combination of both.
mhm.
But supposedly just in Alberta here in Canada, with the oil sands, just there would be enough oil to supply all of North America, or is it the world, or just North
I
America?
believe I can't know. I don't remember the exact numbers, but there's a buttload.
Enough for 125 years for at least that I know, for at least Canada and the U.S. There's enough oil just there in Alberta that we know of, enough to supply U.S. and Canada with the energy they need for 125 years.
The,
I mean,
yeah, that
is that true? Is absolutely true? I don't know, but that's the thing with the day and age we live in. We can't be sure about any of these studies now. There's so much contradicting information,
yeah.
but there's more and more of it coming on both ends. And the thing is, the initial point I was trying to get back to is that there's been huge cataclysmical. I won't even try to repeat that word.
Cataclysmical
Um,
climate
changes,
events,
cataclysmical, yeah, all
history.
across Earth's history. I mean, 10,000 years ago, there was woolly mammoths, and within like something like less than like 20 years, they were completely wiped out
Yeah, we came out of
off the
the last
planet.
ice age was just about 10,000 years ago.
Exactly, it was like a flash freeze or whatever. Like everything like just like froze almost like overnight, and then got really hot and like insane climate change. But even within that period, there's been supposedly some quite intense uh, climactic situations. I'm actually like the the climate change is not even, I think, the worst of it. It's actually the poisoning of our water supply and our air supply with the chemicals. And I think we're making more and more moves to take care of that, situation. But everyone's talking about climate change all the time. Like, okay, I think the Earth in the end can actually handle um, climate
A
change.
couple,
I think it's actually, the it's like, can we handle the poison we're putting out everywhere?
well,
You know?
yeah, when you start trying to break down these products that we've created, they're finding out and
Yeah.
realizing, oh wait, that actually, causes the cancer. Oh great, maybe we
Yeah.
shouldn't have dumped it into a into a
Yeah.
vat and then let it run into the water and ecosystem. That probably wasn't a great
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Definitely.
idea.
Like we got like the stuff in Canada. It's probably all over the world, but like blue algae, where these different toxics, like I think phosphorus or something, that we dump in the rivers and such, create like this blue algae that just like snuffs out all the native ecosystems and stuff. I was actually dating a biologist a long time ago that she was actually hired to make sure that whatever projects were being taken weren't going to start poisoning the nearby environment. And she had to put a lot of pressure on the higher ups to be like, no, this is not worrying. She got a lot of pressure to say, don't worry about it. Oh, check your findings and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's not like it's not like one team is absolutely right. And the more I grow up, the more older I get, is like you can't trust any one side absolutely on 100% on anything.
No, you have to start disseminating information and trying to come to a more accurate conclusion by looking at all the different sources now. I used to swear by CBC radio, and I can't do it anymore because there's such a liberal feminized agenda there. Just because
you're such a hoser,
you're such a hoser, eh?
That sounded so Canadian.
Wear my toque, drive my moose down to the store to get some cigarettes and booze, eh? We haven't really done eh? I was actually really when I was living, like not living. I feel like I was in the States a long time. Being down there, I keep joking that it felt like 8 months, but there's such a different sense of identity there. Americans, they're very proud of their revolutionary history, right? Like we basically threw off our British oppressors and we started our own country with our own constitution. I don't really get that sense as much in Canada, right? We're kind of something that was allowed to continue by a monarchy far away. We had our own, yeah, can we be our own thing now? Okay, sure. Like we just.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Like I'm proud. I guess I'm proud to be a Canadian, but I don't I guess like from a young age, I think like at the end of my teens or early 20s, I'm like, you know what? I mean, there's so much U.S. influence. I'm so influenced by everything in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
That I might as well just consider myself a North American.
Well, that was
I'm a North American.
We are North Americans. That's the continent that we live on.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of a border, it's more of a line on a map than it is anything, right? There's much, trade that goes back and forth every day. There's many corporations own, stakes in Canadian companies.
Yeah, exactly.
We live in a North American society and also a globalized society now, more than we ever did, almost 60 years ago, just because of the access to the internet, information is made a global, interconnected, world, which is actually and I think the cultural identity lines a lot of the time are getting blurred now, because we have such an influx of people from other places immigrating to Canada and the United States, and they bring their culture with them, the good and the bad. And that's, we're in Canada, we're considered what they call cultural mosaic, whereas the States is kind of more of a melting pot. So in Canada,
like what would you say the difference? I was going to say like we're two multicultural countries, but what would you consider the difference between a cultural mosaic and a melting pot?
A melting pot is like mixing everything together, and you get kind of a blend of everything. A mosaic is like looking at a patchwork quilt where we have a Muslim over here, a Hindu over here, a Native American here. Everyone is doing their own little thing, but in a separate patch. Whereas in America, it's just like you throw everything together and watch it the chaos of it. I mean, Canada is chaotic too, but we have, for example, in Quebec right now, there's this whole. I mean, it's still an issue. It's not going to be a big issue, but again, Quebec has their own cultural identity within Canada, right? Um,
Yeah.
so a nation with a nation, or whatever you want to call it, but they still use the same money. They have
Yeah.
access to the same sort of health care, but also they have their
Yeah.
own
Gotcha.
retirement uh, plan that they pay into. It's different from Canadian pension plan. They
Yeah.
have their
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
blood
Okay.
network, but within that, they have a very French identity. And in France,
Yeah.
they're not very tolerant of other cultures coming in and trying to change French identity. So in Quebec, you have to go to French school if you're
Well,
an immigrant, right?
yeah. Well, because you said France, right? But like,
What I'm saying is,
okay,
what
okay,
I'm saying is a lot of that cultural identity comes from France, even though they're in Quebec. So, for example, they have Muslims in Quebec, and they wear the niqab or whatever, some facial head covering because that's their Muslim religious, but they're not allowed to wear
uh
it at
huh,
work, which I'm on board with. I mean, you're in Canada,
yeah,
and everyone, we have a certain, we have religious freedom in Canada, but it's not like you're
yeah,
coming right out of Saudi Arabia or an Eastern or Muslim country. Um,
yeah. The point is like we're a secular society, so we're not going to make special accommodations for your religious practices when ourselves we don't allow ourselves.
well, if we if we
Since
if
I'm
we
from
believe
Quebec,
that all women are equal under Canadian law and under international law, I don't think it's right for them to to have to or want to wear a facial covering, and then
mm-hmm.
and then protest of that, people walk around with a facial covering as a woman, saying, "Well, this is progressive. This is an
I know.
expression of my freedom and identity." In Saudi Arabia,
Did you hear? Wait. I just want to open a
go
parenthesis
ahead.
here. Did you hear about the? This happened a couple weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago or last week. There was this message being written everywhere, posted everywhere in a small town. I think it was in Vermont or something.
Okay.
But it was a 4chan thing. But it said Muslims are right about women, and that's all. That's all it said, right? It wasn't. So in itself, it was pretty innocent,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it triggered it triggered a lot of people because
I'm gonna get a shirt made.
there's like
I'm gonna get a
there's
shirt
like
that
there's
says
like this weird alliance between Muslims and
feminist.
and feminists,
Yeah.
which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
surprising. And by having that poster spread out everywhere, it when the news reporters were interviewing them, it's like they didn't dare say like they sounded confused, almost like confused I am. But you get the gist of it. It's like, well, if you're a feminist and you're pro woman and all that, but at the same time you're saying you're an ally of the Muslims and Islamic culture, but at the same time deep down inside that they're not as tolerant and progressive as you claim all the
Mm-hmm.
time you are. It kind of there's kind of like this cognitive dissonance that's manifesting itself, and it made a lot of people uncomfortable. Supposedly, I mean, it was on the news, for Christ's sake, on TV, just for a little poster, like on black and white paper, saying Muslims are right about women. Right? I mean, it could be read into a million ways, but even if it's a prank and for whatever reasons why that was posted there, I mean, it confused a lot of people and made a lot of people uncomfortable and all that. And I think that's hilarious. I think that's like a a cool trolling. That was like a really good way to troll. I find it kind of puts your ideological positions into perspective. It forces you to put them in perspective.
Mm.
Because which one is it? Like, are Muslims really progressive when they say that women, like a woman is worth only a third of a man's testimony in Sharia law? Is it you know uh, that she can be thrown in jail if she's not chaperoned,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so on? I mean, is that progressive? Of course not. But how can you say then it is progressive? And why do you get upset then when you say it? I mean, if that's truly what you believe, then why would it make you feel upset, right? So, anyways, I thought it was pretty interesting to see that little shindig on the news there.
There's definitely a lot to be said for, you know, knowing where you stand on certain things, right? And
Yeah.
reading between the lines, and because
Mm-hmm.
there is again so much misinformation, and then like white knighting example going on, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
which we talked about in the past. But I wanted to
Yeah.
talk about a definition that I found on the internet again today. Um,
Yeah. Change the
it's
subject.
called
Okay.
being zeroed out. Um,
Yeah.
and basically the gist of it is coming back around is that you, as a man or a person, you get to a certain point in your life, you have a certain level of success, house, car, uh, wife, whatever your benchmark is, and then through
Mm-hmm.
your own bad decisions or your relationships, what have you, you basically get knocked back down to zero, and that's the definition of getting zeroed out. Um,
Yeah. 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 I didn't know about it until you told me about it earlier.
yeah, and I kind of resonated with me because I've definitely been through periods of getting to a certain point, and then all of a sudden, oh, shit happened, and I'm zeroed out.
Yeah.
I've seen it in popular culture with certain celebrities, Robert Downey Jr., Britney um, you know, they
Lindsay
Lindsay
Lohan.
Lohan, um,
Yeah.
and it's just I don't know, it's just kind of
And I mean, there's definitely worse cases than that for sure. I mean, I think Mike Tyson would be a real
example of that.
the when it comes, yeah, like the greatest, like in celebrities would be the most profound um, zeroed out situation. I mean, he went to
Yeah,
jail for 4 years, right?
and then came back and was in The Hangover.
And yeah, yeah, yeah. It took a while. I mean, when he came back, like when he fought Lennox Lewis, no, Evander Holyfield bit his ear. He wasn't the same guy. Like he didn't have the eye of the tiger anymore. He was more like a rabid dog at that point. And I mean, he was one of the most respected athletes of the time in the '80s, early '90s. Um, I mean, like he was getting sponsored left, right, and center. So it's not only the money and even his freedom. I mean, it's just the respect and admiration everyone had for him, and then from that to being viewed as basically a
Mm-hmm.
piece of shit animal, you know. Yeah, like he got zeroed out severely, and the thing is like this guy basically was in a like had a trash childhood, just like treated as an animal, like from orphanage, maybe not orphanages, but group homes and institutions and stuff like that. And then some guy started training him to be a fucking killer, and that's all he was taught to do. And then this guy dies. Joe Rogan talks about it extensively on his podcast on quite a few occasions, and but he's right, and that goes well with what I saw the Joker recently. I'm not going to say any spoilers, just you haven't seen it, and I'm sure there's people in our
Yeah.
audience that hasn't seen it. But that's kind of the moral of the story, is how we all contribute to creating the monsters
Yeah.
around us. And the darkness in our society, it's almost like it's like we all have our own shit, and we can't wait to just pass it off and blame it on someone else. And there's victims in that, because you've got the less fortunate, and I'm not only talking about money here, but less fortunate from the parents' environment they've had, the society they live in, and all that get the brunt of it, and then these people crack, and
Yeah.
we wonder
There's
what
been a few of
happened.
those in the news lately too.
You know, oh yeah, it's a growing problem. So, well, Mindhunter, me and my girlfriend, we've been
That's
watching Mindhunter. Well, we watched it all. So
they pro.
that's about like the FBI. It's basically,
It's when they profile
go
serial
ahead.
killers, right? The first time they started doing it.
Exactly, exactly. It's basically the story of how they develop behavioral sciences to profile serial killers and all that. And I mean, there's definitely common themes of how they were brought up, and like how they were as people. I mean, and this is where I hate, like, all these people. Yeah, I think it's coming a lot more from the far left when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the Joker movie, but these, I mean, this is like, oh, video games made these serial killers all over again, or Marilyn Manson made them do it, or and so on and so on. It's society and bad parents that are creating, or worst case scenario, bad genetics. But I mean, if you have like good mental health care, and accessible, effective mental health care, accessible for people that that didn't win the genetic lottery or whatever, uh, I'm sure we'd be able to eliminate quite a few of these mass shooters or serial killers or whatnot. But to blame a movie that might inspire someone to do horrific acts like that is kind of it's crazy, because for you to implement that in any case it's to encroach on the freedom of everyone else. You know, even if it was true, like, and for having
More of an
seen the
art,
movie,
right? Well,
and
I view it as a piece of
it's
art,
what say
right? Just
what
like any art, it's an act of creation, and you can interpret it and take it how you like to. But it's not.
Well, exactly. I mean, art is all about representing the good, the bad, and the ugly in existence. It's not about catering to
Yeah.
everyone's feelings, right? Um, and art, I guess you could say, art can be dangerous, and that's okay. The thing is art is supposed to represent a profound truth in humanity that's within us or around us that you can't express by normal
Okay.
means normally, you know. It's to, but the like, even if some guy did something horrific with, because he really got inspired by the movie, first of all, obviously this would only be a straw that broke the camel's back, or the last drop before in a cup before spilling. It's not like some normal person, or even some highly damaged person, um, is going to watch the movie and say, you know what, okay, I'm going to do this now because I saw this movie. all this other crap, all these other violent video games, and all this other pornography, all this other rap music, or rock music, or death metal, or this or that, never inspired me. But this movie did it. Yeah, it's this movie. Obviously, you know, if we live in a world where one piece of art or entertainment can drive a human being, can drive multiple human beings to doing crazy shit like that, then I mean, there's a problem with all of us here. You know, I mean, we're not that fragile. Even the people that have been through crazy amounts of suffering and pain and all that, I've seen many resilient people that turn out to be great people, even though they've had atrocious
I think that really
lives.
tells, ultimately what your character is going to be. If you don't go through some hard times in your life, you're if you think it's going to be sunshines and roses all the time, and then you experience your hardship. I think the hardship actually really shows, your true character and who you're going to be, So, and I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And like in anything, like in any, like life is in a lot of ways is a competition, or in its continuous challenges. It doesn't matter. Some people, like in any sport or in any endeavor, there's always going to be winners and losers, and you can pretend that that's not the case. So there's some people, even if you give them exactly the same type of challenges, for whatever reason, one is going to deal with it better than the other one. Just like if you give someone the same training, for say running a race, you give a group of people the same training, the same diet, the same this and that, there's going to be winners and losers in that. Unfortunately, nature is like that. And it's not one piece of art or one piece of there's so much on the internet already, and even besides the internet, like be it books or video games and so on, to inspire someone that's mentally fragile to commit horrific acts, that it's not going to be one more movie. That's actually pretty tame. But I can see someone relate to this character at a profound level and like do something. It might be, but again, it might be that last drop. But the movie itself is talking about how society can create a monster. Like what the hell can you do? Like, well, instead of looking of, let's try to take away people's freedom to create and consume what they want, let's just ban the symptom. It's like treating AIDS when the person is it's like treating someone with AIDS by giving them a cough drop type of thing.
A stage, and I'm with you. I'm following your metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how the far you think by banning movies or entertainment like the Joker or violent video games or anything of that nature is going to prevent people from going crazy or whatever? Are you out your mind? First of all, what's driving people crazy is not being able to be themselves and being able to connect with other people. That's just one thing.
A lack of is for as connected that we are, like technologically, we're also disconnected psychologically. That makes any sense.
Yeah, alienated with ourselves, within ourselves. I think I've improved greatly on that, but it took a lot of like work and effort and, you know, my own studying and all that to actually realize how disconnected with certain aspects of myself I've been, you know, be it meditation, psychedelics, reading a host of stuff on psychology
It's,
and
it's
even
yeah,
spirituality and
the process of
philosophy,
becoming
etc.
self-aware is a continual process. You know,
Yeah, especially if you've been damaged, pain, trauma of whatever, or stress, whatever is going to be your natural response to that. If it's overwhelming, is to push
mm.
it as far back as
You know,
possible.
and lots of people don't
You know,
even ever get
within
to a point
oneself.
to even start doing the work to become self-aware. I don't know, you know, self-awareness.
Hmm. Well, people prefer being
Mm-hmm.
blissfully unaware, and that's the thing. I think like you could actually, you know, get from people that, oh, we should ban this, is that they're
Mm-hmm.
unaware of their own shit, man. They're unaware of the own shit on their knees. They're so obsessed. They're so lacking in inner strength, and they've never faced their own shadows, that they create this image of themselves as holier than thou, morally superior than everyone else, and they they project all their own shadow bullshit
That's what I was just gonna
onto
say.
other
Like they
people.
start projecting rather than dealing with it. They start projecting it onto others,
Yeah,
right? Subconscious. Um,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, who knows? Maybe that's the thing. Like people, maybe if they don't necessarily fear it in themselves, they fear that all the people around them, you know, who knows what their psychological issues are pushing them to do that. But like, you know, someone that had a bad childhood, you know, had an abusive father or whatever, they might grow up and say, oh, almost everyone is like that because the person that was supposed to love me the most and take care of me did that to me. So now they see evil in everyone,
the opposite
right?
of extreme, right?
So, yeah. Well, it's a complex issue, and I guess what pisses me off the most is that we're gonna blame a movie
Right.
or a video
No,
game or anything else, form of media or entertainment, on severe mental health
because that's more of the
issues.
root cause of it rather than, you know, it's a deflection from the root cause rather than looking, you know.
Yeah, and from what I see more and more, and what I've experienced in my own life, and what I've seen in other people's self development stories, is repression is the is repression of any kind is and repression of awareness, repression of actually being true to what's going on in your internal self, be it feelings or emotions or sensations or whatever, are usually the ones that are
Yep.
the most screwed up inside. You know, like a good example are these priests or politicians that are firmly against uh, that go on crusades against homosexuals, and then you find out that
They're
they're
actually
fucking they
closeted.
get caught. I can't remember their names or whatever. They get caught with Yeah, exactly. They get caught with fucking male prostitutes and with crystal meth and shit like that, and they're the ones like that are pushing like the holier than thou Christian religious system onto people the most fervently, right? So repression, you know, repressing in yourself and projecting onto others evil, whatever you might consider evil. I mean, I use a pretty cut and clear example there, but it applies to all kinds of things. is I think is the worst thing. It's alienating. And again, I think one of the biggest afflictions of humanity today is this alienation, this powerlessness that the common person feels in this society, in this world we live in. So yeah, I think I'll end my rant here. I don't even remember what was the
Yeah.
initial conversation we were
Do
talking
you
about.
want to? Do you
But,
want that rant over?
yeah, rant
Do you want
over.
to? Do you want to sign off here with what you think the your 2020 and beyond prediction for either the presidential election or the Canadian federal election?
Well, let's do
Global
let's do a global. Like, what are some key things? Yeah, global. Be it election, politics,
2020.
technology,
Yeah, 2020 is going to
economics.
shape up to be an
Yeah,
interesting year, I think, globally. We're we're coming from
yeah.
an odd year to an even year. I tend to do better in even years on average. Don't know why. Odd years have always been off for me.
Okay.
This year has been a lot of reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm ready now to start working on some things myself to get ready for the next. I don't know. They're predicting there's going to be a recession. So I don't know your thoughts on that.
I truly I mean, I actually made there's already like some rumblings already, like pretty serious. I actually made a good amount of money last week, um because
Because they
the
don't know
market
who the
is
next
starting to break
president is
down.
going to be in the United States.
And
Uh, Trump might get impeached.
the trade war,
Yeah.
the trade war
Uh,
yeah, Trump might get impeached. The China-U.S. trade war. We don't know who, and like in trading, I can definitely like the stock market doesn't like they definitely prefer a
well,
Republican over Democrats,
yeah.
right? Just because they tend to make it difficult for these big corporations, more difficult than the Republicans anyways. Republicans seem to lax off a lot of stuff that make it more easy for big corporations and all that to make profits, so in turn
Mm-hmm.
makes the stock goes up, right? So there was just there was actually a recently a few weeks ago, Bernie Sanders just started talking about.
Yeah.
He's still a senator, right? So just started talking about making major cuts, or not cuts, but making healthcare and pharmaceuticals and all that, insurance and all that free and government sponsored. And you should have seen the stocks, like everything medical related plummeted. Um, and right now, so we kind of live in a world now where the economy, at least the stock market, but even currency and all that is extremely can become
Yep.
extremely sensitive to
24-hour
news.
cycle never stops.
Yeah, positive and negative, and I actually think this is like the longest bull run the global markets have had in I think in the history. There's usually between 6 and 8 years. There's
Mm-hmm.
always been like a recession. The guy that actually predicted the 2008 housing crisis, he actually believes we're in another severe bubble right now with with indexes
That makes
right
sense.
now. That a lot yeah, that just like how the CDOs and all that were like became a huge bubble that imploded. Indexes, there's a lot of. We're not talking about like the S&P 500 and all that. We're talking about like all these new indexes popping up everywhere. So, you bag a whole bunch of companies together, and hey, look, we got this great index in this new sector, avant-garde sector. And people are pouring their money into it, and it's non-sustainable. And
Well, it's the
I
same
think he's
idea
right.
as junk bonds, right? Bundle a
So
bunch of junk bonds. It's like the whole same idea as junk bonds.
it's what?
Bundle a whole bunch of junk bonds together, and then eventually you see
Yeah, exactly.
crash, underneath the facade, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Canadian wise, I don't know who's going to win the federal election. I'm predicting probably a liberal minority, likely, um, with
Yeah,
some,
me too.
or,
Yeah,
well,
or
yeah,
conservative
50-50 split.
minority.
And then the Greens will be
Yeah,
the kingmaker, I think, because the NDP just don't have a leg to stand on. The New Democratic Party, there's no leadership there at all. So
yeah. I mean, Jack Layton
well,
actually put them on the map. Like they outpaced the
they did,
Liberals,
and
right,
then
in
Jack Layton got
2011.
cancer and died.
Yeah,
Poor guy. You ever read
yeah,
his last letter? It's
yeah.
worth a read, actually. Jack Layton last letter. He he
Okay,
had
no,
some very hopeful
I haven't, but I will.
things to pass on before he died. So, and I think honestly, it's one of the last few
Yeah,
leaders federally I even remotely resonate with. And I personally don't think I'm going to vote this
yeah.
year because it really where I'm yeah
I'm
I,
not.
like
I'm not
where
voting.
I'm from, like I know the incumbent conservative is going to win. So there's really no point. It's just
Yeah,
not throwing a vote away, but I know up here I'm not going to get the representation that I was promised, the proportional representation the Liberals promised the last election cycle didn't happen.
hmm
They were negative on that, so there's really
hmm
there's in terms of where I sit as a more moderate person, there's really no representation for me here.
yeah. Well, there's no one I truly believe in, and I'm not that invested. I'm so focused on my own stuff. I always believe that you should
Internally,
be more
yeah,
how yeah, how you can build your life, and not don't rely on
no,
politics to build your life. But I mean,
mm-hmm.
it's important to be aware. It's important to be aware of certain things, and sometimes it's good to push a change. But what I'm seeing is kind of like same old, same old. And I think a minority government is
Yeah,
going to be good. Um, I don't care who like actually that's kind of what I want to see, a minority government. I think I'd prefer to have the conservatives. It's the first time I've ever said that I'd prefer conservatives. I apolitical as I am, I never wanted really conservatives uh, to be at the head of anything, um, and have absolute power. Just because a lot of their ideology doesn't really jive with mine. But Trudeau's government, I think he's done some good things, but his fuck ups are there. There are a lot of fuck ups, and I think he's incompetent in a lot of areas, and he favored optics over, um, leftist progressive optics
and substance.
over
Yeah,
competency and merit. Yeah. And, like making sure that there's an equal amount of men and women and different nationalities and all that in his cabinet over I don't care if all his cabinet was all women, as long as they were the best suited for the job. We're all Native Americans, or all black people, or Indians, or it really doesn't matter, as long as they are the best people for the job and can do a good job to make our country
and
the best it
yeah,
can be,
I,
right? And for a guy so focused on optics, he gets caught dressed as Aladdin, and some Jamaican dude singing
ayo,
"Ayo,"
ayo, yeah,
and so
he's
on.
a little hypocritical.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
yeah, and so on. Yeah, yeah. Personally, I don't think that I don't think the guy's fundamentally racist or anything like that. I just think the guy, likes dressing up. I mean, he's been doing
Yeah, he has.
he's been doing it forever. Like as a prime minister, he goes and dresses up like in whatever culture he's in and all that. He just likes to dress up. He's like he lives in the eternal Halloween costume party,
You
man.
just
This guy,
described the House of Commons,
you know.
the eternal Halloween party. Everyone's wearing a costume every goddamn day there.
Yeah,
All right. On that note,
yeah,
John, you
yeah.
want to sign off?
Yeah, I guess we
You
can
got
sign
some.
off. Do you have any announcements?
We're still have an Instagram account, Doomer at Doomer Boomers podcast. You can be reached there or at themapletrues@gmail.com, but I'm probably going to change our email soon here. This shall be posted
Yeah.
hopefully by tomorrow onto most of the podcasting platforms and a little later on little later on YouTube. I'm
Perfect. And on
little
YouTube.
slow to upload to YouTube because I got to
Okay.
edit it. But I don't want to plug
Cool.
Buzzsprout,
Okay.
but that's who we use. And anything we talk about, I will
Yeah.
put links in the description of the podcast or in the YouTube description as well. And again, feel to reach out to us, whether you're an
Perfect.
American listener, Canadian listener, North American listener, European. Any color, denomination, religion under the sun, feminist,
Yeah.
non-feminist, trans, feminist, whatever you are.
Yeah, and also I'd like to add that if you guys ever want to voice your own opinion on here, you guys want to come talk with us online. If it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree on any particular subjects, send us an email or a message, and maybe we can make this happen.
We're open, is what I'm getting at. Even though we're rational monsters.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well,
and Bill,
this is John Wynn.
Peace.
Signing off. Peace.